Hello, and welcome back to another EPC Teardown Guide. Today we'll be taking a look at the Dell Precision 5680. This model, with a 13th gen processor and a 16-inch screen, it's a little more difficult to take apart just because of multiple different kinds of screws and a full heatsink to take off. Today, we'll show you how. Now let's get into it. You can already tell that this model has seen its fair share of wear. We'll be seeing more of that in just a minute. In fact, just looking here on the back, we should have 8 of these hex bit TR5 screws, but 4 of them were missing as it came to us. And of course, as I said, that's only 4, but each one of these holes should hold one of those screws. Let's get this back cover off. Oops. I believe the easiest way to do that is going to be to open it up and just put a little shim right in here. Maybe use the power light right here. We're just going to gently pry it apart. Looks like the right side wanted to give first. There we go. Now, as usual, first thing we're going to do is to take this battery out. And to start with that, let's swap this bit over to a Phillips 00. This battery has a shield right here covering the main battery connector. Just 2 screws hold it in place. Captured screws, it looks like. And this piece comes right off. You'll have to be a bit careful because it's winged, as you'll see in a second. There's little hooks that hook onto the bottom. So you just have to pull it out and make sure it doesn't damage the connector. Now we can pull that battery connector off. And just pulling that off, you can already see the first signs of a bit of corrosion on here. As we said, this thing has been slightly used, although it's still functional even with all that corrosion. We've cleaned up a bit of it, but more work can be done. Next up, we have 6 of these other small Phillips screws around the outside of the battery. And with that done, we should be able to just grab that connector and pull the battery right away. Now we're going to tackle this heatsink and the fan assembly. And to do that, we'll start with removing these CPU fans. Both of them are held down by 2 Phillips screws. Now to get the fans out, we'll have to disconnect the power connectors to the fan itself. This wing connector over here can be taken off with your fingers or a pair of tweezers, gently pulling back on the wings. You want to make sure, as always, you don't pull on the cable itself because that's going to risk damaging the cable, the connector, all kinds of things. Another thing to be careful about is if you're using tweezers instead of your finger, make sure you grab it, don't just push down because you might end up scratching the board. And with those out, both of them can be lifted up and pulled towards you. Then we can tackle the heatsink itself. The heatsink is actually numbered. Those numbers are usually for applying equal pressure when screwing the heatsink on. We can just follow them in the reverse order to take it off. The screws for this heatsink are slightly larger than the other screws we've been dealing with, so if your bit is jumping, I'd recommend going to a slightly larger Phillips bit. Now the whole sink assembly, it's definitely going to be held down by the thermal paste, so you're going to have to pull up. Don't pull up too hard on any one place so you don't end up bending it. Up and away. Yes, while we're here, I can show you the SSDs. Pretty glaring, but they're also easy to take apart. One screw each, just right here in the back end. And then that pulls right away. Next thing we're going to be removing is this GPU dedicated right here. Though it's screwed in a lot of different places. So we'll start with this bracket right up here on the top, held in by these two small Phillips screws. And then the bracket itself, if I can grab it right there from the middle, pull it right away. And now we have this sidebar here. It's similarly numbered, just like the heatsink is. You can also see there's a diagram right here they designed for you for assembling the GPU. So we're more or less following that. Take this off in order. With that done, the full piece should come right up. It's definitely held on by a bit of tension from these small little stubs. Next up, we've got this lower ribbon connector down here. We're gonna have to swap back to our hex bit. And then once you've gotten those 4 screws off, gotta be careful with this one because it's not just a ribbon cable, but underneath the ribbon cable is also spacers. So take those off as well. Now with that, the only thing holding this GPU in are these 2 screws on the top and bottom. Oh, I'll swap that back to a Phillips. And then the whole thing should lift right away. Now the only thing left to tackle is going to be the main board itself. But there's still a bunch of steps left before we get there. For starters, we have this USB-C shield over here held on by these 2 Phillips screws. I believe this comes up in a way, though I don't rightly recall. Okay, nope, I think that stays on there. Then we have another one right over here. 3 screws this time. Again, it'll stay right in place. We've got a display connector for the lid up here. This is held on by these hex bits, so we're going back to that. We've got 2 in this little black plastic, I'm not sure what you would call this, guard. And then we can get the connector itself off. Another 2 screws. And much like before, you'll have to be careful because once you take this off, there's a little spacer underneath. Now the board itself is held on by 4 Phillips screws, pretty much on the corners of the board. We have this Wi-Fi chip here with the connectors under the shield. We'll have to take that shield off so we can disconnect those before we get the board itself out. Just 1 captured screw in this little shield. And then to get the connectors off, as always, be very gentle. Try and pull the connectors directly away from the chip, just to prevent any damage from the chip or the connectors themselves. Made more difficult in this model by the fact that there's a stub right there. There we go. Now we have these speaker cables down here. These ones aren't wing connectors, so a little more difficult to take off. Use something pointy to push both sides out so you can get enough purchase that it just comes right out. A slight pull. So the other side. And as I said before, try not to put any pressure on the cables themselves. They have a few ribbon cables here. We've got one up here in the top left. I'm pretty sure it's for the power button. Pull that out. Make sure you reset the latch. Another one down here at the bottom. Same as before. Pull it out. Set the latch. Now, I believe that is everything on this side of the board. So if we gently lift the board up and flip it over, we can see 2 more connections down here on the bottom left. Both of them are held on by, it looks like, 2 Phillips screws. Easy enough to take apart. Now we get that out. Yep, looks like the bracket and the connector are one and the same. And same with this one. With that, the board itself goes up and away. And as you can see, there's a handful of other things that you could still do while you're in here. For instance, the lid is held on by, looks like 4 screws on either side. Other than that, it's easy enough to go up and away. It does not appear like the keyboard is replaceable in this model, but the touchpad assembly down here, while absolutely massive, does look like it's replaceable, as well as stuff like the speakers, but that's where we're going to stop it today. So that's how you take apart the Dell Precision 5680. Thank you for watching.
Don't feel like doing a teardown yourself? Have not just one, but hundreds of devices taking up space? EPC is a global leader in the ITAD field, and it's our goal to reduce e-waste and give devices a second chance. Reach out to us today to learn more.